Worlds collide as the Dark Knight meets the heroes in a half-shell. Batman vs. the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a crossover I never knew anyone wanted, but I'm sure glad the world got. No matter how you feel about it, it's hard to argue that it's far from the worst crossover either one of these two IPs has ever seen. I'm looking at you, Power Rangers and Ruby. I'm looking at you, but I don't want to be. It's also not the first crossover these two brands have ever seen, as they've met several times before this in comics, and also in the Injustice series. Actually, this movie is somewhat of an adaptation, being based on the first comic that saw these heroes interact, although there definitely has been a fair share of alterations between in-panel and on-screen. For starters, while the movie is capitalizing off a showdown between the two, being titled Batman vs. the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the comic is simply titled Batman the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Whereas in the comic, these worlds were depicted as being, well, separate worlds, with the Turtles being transported to the world of Gotham via portal, here they're just shown to be living in separate cities. The comics also only contained Batman and Robin encountering the team, but this time around Batgirl joins in on the fun. Outside of that, there's not a whole lot of new inclusions. As a matter of fact, more often than not, there's exclusions. TMNT characters like Casey Jones and April, who appeared in that first story, aren't even referenced here. Well, one sort of is, but it's subtle. Other characters like Splinter are definitely downplayed, appearing only in flashback. It's clear that this isn't the perfect replication of that story, but then again, it doesn't feel like it's always trying to be. The character models are considerably different than they are in the book. From what I can tell, it looks like Batman and the Ninja Turtles were designed in this movie to not necessarily emulate any versions of the characters that might have been out at the time. This makes it clear that this is just a one-off of the good guys, with no ties to any pre-existing continuities. This isn't Batman from Batman the Animated Series, and this isn't the TMNT from Nickelodeon, even if they did have a part in making this movie. With that being said, in spite of all the changes made, there are certain scenes and moments that are ripped directly from the comic verbatim, shot for shot. I do enjoy a lot about this movie. For starters, while Batman and the Ninja Turtles doesn't seem to be an ideal team-up, what with them being tonally different and all, Ra's al Ghul and Shredder is a match made in bad guy heaven and good guy hell. They're both big bads that lead over a secret society of ninjas. The Foot Clan meets the League of Assassins. What's not to love? On the subject of the titular characters combining, I will say that these two brands seem to mix surprisingly well. Well, from what I can tell. But that might be because the brands seem to be meeting each other halfway. At times, this is way too immature to be a Batman movie, and at other times, it's far too mature to be a Ninja Turtles project. It seems like Batman was a little bit lighter and the Turtles were made just a little bit darker. Some of the best scenes this movie has to offer are just the two superhero squads hanging out and shooting the stuff. Seeing the bond between the characters grow, watching Batman and Leonardo in a training session, Donatello and Batgirl working side by side utilizing their collective smarts, and Robin just generally being annoyed by New York's finest. Which I find interesting because this is Damian Wayne, and I was under the impression that he was an animal lover. Though I really need to say I'm not exactly a Turtles expert. I'm much more of a bad guy. So, being as such, I had to outsource some information from somebody who knows a little bit more about the Turtles than I do. Somebody who will hopefully put things into perspective here. And I thought, what could be a better way of symbolizing the crossover between Batman and the Ninja Turtles than by making my crossover review a crossover review.
Hi, this is J of J's Reviews speaking. For those who don't know me, in the very distant past, my channel had put a lot of focus into an episode-by-episode breakdown of many of the shows in the DC animated universe: Batman the Animated Series, Superman the Animated Series, Justice League Unlimited, and Batman Beyond. My channel is pretty much all about video games, however I did that DCAU retrospective, well, because I felt like it, which was also the inspiration for me to cover the 2003 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series in 2021. This was a condensed retrospective with significantly shorter video run times than the DCAU videos, but it was much better for it, having much better flow than my prior cartoon analysis. Although you didn't come here to see me discuss my past work. My association with Batman and the Turtles is why I was invited to discuss Batman vs. TMNT, a film I was always interested in checking out, but I never got around to it until I was asked to join this video, which finally gave me a reason to watch it. The TMNT is a brand that's gone through quite an evolution since it debuted in comics in 1984. The reason I'd go that far back for the discussion of this movie is because of the fact that crossovers have always been a big element to TMNT media in the 80s and the 90s, just not as much in the 2000s. The Viacom buyout of TMNT in 2009 that came after the 2003 series ended its run had changed a lot of things for the brand. The 2012 Nickelodeon TMNT series had crossed over with Batman in the comics. That comic actually was using the world of the DCAU for Batman and crew, even bridging some gaps between Batman the Animated Series and the new Batman Adventures season. This film is not a direct adaptation of that comic, but it did get the ball rolling on TMNT crossing over with Batman. In fact, the movie has no continuity at all. This is not a version of the TMNT we've seen before, and the same goes for Batman and his cast of characters. I find the film very approachable for anyone who just knows the basics of both brands. Batman is the serious crime fighter of Gotham with millions of dollars in gadgets at his disposal, joined by his butler Alfred and sidekicks Batgirl and Robin, fighting his usual rogues like the Joker and the Penguin. The Turtles are a group of 4 mutant turtle brothers: Leonardo the leader, Raphael the hot-headed strong one, Donatello the smart one, and Michelangelo the funny one, and together they battle the Shredder and his Foot Clan. If you know those basic facts, Batman vs. TMNT will be pretty easy to watch. Although it was significantly more violent than I expected. That's not really a bad thing at all, I'm just saying that straight up. Bones are broken, blood is shed, and all that. It's certainly not a kids movie, it's definitely an earned PG-13, but kids could watch it and be fine. As I was saying, since there's no continuity associated with this film, I don't have to worry about whether or not this character or that character is being portrayed accurately based on previous events. What does matter is that the characterization is on point with what most people know of Batman and the Turtles. I've always enjoyed when Batman is in a goofier story but is still a self-serious character. That's how I enjoy Batman when he's in super serious stories and lighthearted ones. That consistency is good to have. The movie has all the set pieces you'd expect with a crossover between these two brands, like Batman totally schooling all 4 turtles in a fight, or Batman being turned into a mutant briefly and needing to be rescued, or moments that flesh out each turtle's personality, like Leonardo being hit with Scarecrow's fear toxin, which shows the audience's fear of failure as a leader, which has been a core part of several TMNT incarnations, or Raphael standing up to Batman when he's being stubborn. The art design in this movie makes all the characters featured look really good and in place in one another's world. The action's brutal and cathartic, the animation's well done, the voice acting and casting is great.
When it comes to the voice cast, there's a couple familiar faces returning to their roles.
Especially love Troy Baker as Batman. He's a fantastic actor in everything he's in, and I've always enjoyed his serious Batman takes, like in the Telltale series, his comedic Batman in the LEGO games, and the things in between, like this. He even played the Joker in Arkham Origins. Man's got range.
This is the first, and I think only time the same voice actor voiced both Batman and the Joker in the same project. Which makes sense, as the actor who played them has played both parts previously.
Tom Kenny also reprises his role of the Penguin from the 2004 show, The Batman, where I thought he was good, so it's nice to hear him again as Penguin for the cameo he got when they introduced the Turtles into the film.
Brian George portrays Alfred just as he does in The Killing Joke and The Doom That Came to Gotham. Tara Strong comes back to play the part of Harley Quinn, unsurprisingly, as she seems to be the one constant with this character. I'm not going to list all that she's played Harley Quinn in, because if you've seen Harley Quinn in anything animated, there is a 90% chance it was her. She also plays Poison Ivy in a multitude of Batman media over the years. John DiMaggio acts as Mr. Freeze, just as he did in Batman the Brave and the Bold, with Carlos Alazraqui as Bane, as he was in Batman Unlimited and Justice League Doom. On the Ninja Turtle side of things, Eric Baza and Darren Criss reprised their roles of Leonardo and Raphael, which they played in an animated short prior to this. As I've said before, I know nothing about that. The movie does a good job of balancing its material. So much so that sometimes when something is referenced, I don't even know which property it's supposed to be a shout out to. Like when one of Penguin's guards show up looking like this. As a Batman fan, I take one look at this and I think, mutant leader. But as someone who has seen a Ninja Turtles cartoon before, I think Krang. Which is it? I have no idea. Let me know in the comments. Cast your votes. The movie at first gets the Turtles accustomed to Batman's world, having them fail at blending into the somewhat more grounded nature of Gotham City. And then at the end of the movie, it gives Batman's rogues gallery a total makeover, transforming them into foes with personas, similar to the type of threats that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles would come up against. Although having said that, they're also already similar to some of the enemies the Caped Crusader has gone against. Amongst others, Man-Bat and Killer Croc would not feel foreign in a Ninja Turtle show. A lot of these transformations make sense. Turning Mr. Freeze into a polar bear, because cold. Scarecrow becoming a crow, because that's in his name, although I would say it's a bit of an oxymoron, but so is making the Master of Fear a man who is very fearful. Harley Quinn transforms into a laughing hyena. Yes, all of this makes sense to me. But then you have others that are kind of head-scratching. Like, Poison Ivy becomes a Venus flytrap, which is not an animal. I'm pretty sure that's a plant. Like, it makes sense for her, but it doesn't make sense for the serum that she took. I feel like you're cheating now. Two-Face becomes a two-headed cat. That is not a thing that makes sense. There is not a breed of cat that has two heads. Bane becomes a jaguar because, I don't know, he had to become something and that's what we had. And the Joker becomes a snake because, you know, why not, I guess. At one point, Batman almost turns into a giant Batman, but the formula isn't fully successful as he fights his transformation. We'd have to wait years to get a chance to see that fully come to fruition. Aesthetically, I really love all of these characters' designs. They're pretty great. And on some level, I'm a little bummed out that we're never gonna see them again. Like I said, this is all just a one-off. This was made, all the assets for this were made for this specifically. So it's kind of a bit of a letdown. This movie doesn't have a whole lot of depth, but it doesn't have to, because it's a lot of fun on the surface. It's a mindless event that sees two groups of not-so-super friends link up and take on some of their most notorious nemesises. Nemesi? I don't care, whatever. It's chock full of fun interactions and entertaining fight scenes.
With a runtime of 84 minutes, it's not a movie that will utterly blow your mind and leave you thinking for years to come, but it's not like that's the bar every film needs to be judged by. Batman vs. TMNT was a fun movie with lots of good moments that was enjoyable to watch as both a Batman and a TMNT fan. But if you're only a fan of one of those things and have limited knowledge of the other one, I think you'd still enjoy the movie because it's a well-done crossover that's fun to watch, with a simple story and a lot of good scenes. Whether that be funny, intense, or wholesome like Batman letting Robin eat pizza with the turtles at the end. And that's basically my take on it. So overall, I liked it, and I think you in the audience would too if you haven't seen it. And that's all from me.
Well worth the watch. And if you haven't already, I highly suggest checking it out. That was Batman vs. the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and if you like this video and would be interested in seeing me take a look back at the comic series that inspired the film, let me know in the comment section below by leaving a comment saying,
"Hey, I'm a Turtle Bat."
I am vengeance. I am the night, and that was V Infuso. Just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.
So, if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too would like to become a V-generate, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, nerds!
And if you're not joining the fun, you're in for one bad day. And you know what they say about having one bad day?
Catch him next time. Same bat time. Same bat channel.